Among all the homes built back then, the Masia Freixa is perhaps the most delirious and simply fun. The oriel is total fantasy in the Moorish style, and the water tower suggests a camel's hump. Glass shards embedded in mortar. Many have fallen, but imagine the reflections they must have given off under a midday sun. From what remains, it's possible to discern how the imagination is capable of extrapolating everything. The spiral staircase, the ergonomic doorknobs, the door jambs, the butterfly-shaped hinges. It's none too difficult to understand why Lluís Muncunill so enjoyed designing this home. In the mid-19th century, Terrassa grew spectacularly thanks to the Industrial Revolution. Railroad cars filled with wool and coal chugged into North Station. Once it had arrived, the wool was examined for quality. It was then sorted and distributed, before undergoing what was, and is, the specialized treatment that only Terrassan artisans could give it. All the factories had warehouses full of elaborately sewn fabrics. These warehouses were also wholesale shops. The logic of this business resulted in well-known architects being hired to design and construct what would become the symbols of these enterprises. It goes without saying that some of these warehouses left customers very impressed indeed. But what actually went on in these factories? Terrassa offers us a unique opportunity to understand the era we know as the Industrial Revolution. This was once a steamer, but today it is the Museum of Science and Technology of Catalunya. Beneath this sea of bricks, the glass-paned openings oriented to the north guaranteed a constant supply of sunlight, yet impeded the negative effects of direct light, which would have caused the fabrics to fade. However, the best is inside, a succession of vaults supported by tapped iron columns. This type of building was called a steamer because it functioned with steam power. In this way, the factory did without the customary hydraulic energy afforded by a river, which was necessary because Terrassa didn't have a river. But while the machinery was the heart of these factories, the intestines were in the basement, in the boiler. Carts and later trucks poured the fuel directly into the coal cellar. 12-hour shifts weakened the already sapped strength of the workers, who by this time had to punch in and out. This passageway, measuring about 10 meters, was the route the smoke took from the boiler to the base of the chimney. These iron stairs were used by the chimney sweeps, generally small boys due to the progressively narrow ascent and the tiny footholds. Among the factory's mementos is one that perhaps best depicts the conditions the workers experienced and likewise clarifies why this city was such a hotbed of labor movements. As the story goes, it was winter and a tremendous snowstorm hit. The owners decided to give the workers a day off, and several photographs were taken. Upon studying the faces of the men and women who toiled here, it's impossible to deduce that this was indeed a holiday. Nobody smiles. The prematurely wizened faces, the sunken eyes, and the clothes, decidedly too light for a cold winter day, are moving testimony from that bygone era. There is a certain amount of nostalgia in the sound of sardanas, Catalonian folk dances which served to bring together all the different social classes and foment the creation of folklore of a country. Some workers' homes from that era have been preserved. The textile industry generated a wealthy upper class that turned Terrassa into a real city, a title it was granted in 1877. The Alegre de Sagrera home dates from the beginning of the 19th century, although it was restored in 1912. Today, it is the city museum. One of the characteristics of modernism, or Spanish Art Nouveau, is that it managed to rescue glazed tile as a lay art form. It incorporated the latest advances of the era and bestowed dignity on the previously ill-considered bathroom. Art Nouveau brought with it the effervescence of the applied arts. From floor tiles to stairway balustrades, all the various elements of construction sought the artistic movement's harmony, which had identified in the curved line its finest sense of synthesis. The city has other homes of note, many of which have been restored while preserving the essential elements of the age. The market dates from that time too. As in many places, both Catalan and Spanish are spoken here indistinctly. The market is the largest iron building here. Its height and ventilation openings suggest the care given to proper sanitation. At the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th, Terrassa created its own savings bank and insurance mutual, several years before the institution of Social Security. It also saw the creation of the Bank of Terrassa, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Grand Casino. Besides being a cafe, today it sells books and records. But 100 years ago, it must have been a splendid place where the well-to-do gave their parties, paired their sons and daughters off, and even played a few clandestine gambling games. Well-founded rumors say that in the basement of the Grand Casino, great fortunes were lost. Its walls are still decorated with sports motifs, which in their day were the exclusive domain of the upper class. The Terrassa Swimming Club was established 70 years ago. Today it has 17,000 members, no less than 10% of the city's population. In general, Terrassans are very keen on sports. Soccer, swimming, basketball, track and field, but above all, field hockey. In 1910, a group of youngsters took up this sport. Today, Terrassa has some 7,000 field hockey players and 3 professional clubs. Many of the players on the gold medal team at the 1992 Barcelona Olympic Games were native Terrassans. At the beginning of the 20th century, films were already very popular. This movie theater was built in 1916. In exemplary fashion, the Terrassa city government has taken upon itself the responsibility to preserve the Cataluña, so the only cinema in the downtown area doesn't disappear. Terrassa is the headquarters for the cinema school, the only one of its kind in all of Cataluña, and one of only a handful throughout Spain. In what was once the tuberculosis hospital, we find the Audiovisual Production Center, the embryo of a future visual arts mega-studio that evokes great expectations here. Terrassa is also where the only optics school in Catalunya is located. It now has some 600 students.
F, P, y no la veo. A ver.
Vuelve a mirar ahí al fondo, aquella O, correcto, tapa el ojito, vemos que no se mueve, no se mueve.
Student life is very animated. Terrassa has the second largest campus in Catalunya with nearly 13,000 students. However, We should remember